Welcome to part 2 of 5 parts of purposeful planning for Christian entrepreneurs. I am Dr. Karen Lindwall-Bourg, the president of Karen Board Companies and the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs. This is one of the most probably intense, maybe time-consuming pieces of the puzzle, and it speeds up as we go even further. So let me just say, first off, I so appreciate you walking through the introduction and taking your time and being patient with yourself to really introduce yourself to the whole process. And then for walking through part 1, which took a while, and for really diving in to a deep brain dump, a dream list, and tweaking it and bending it and categorizing it and prioritizing it. You should, if you're not there yet, you need to take some time before you start this portion and go back. You should really have honed in on, in part 1, about 7 top priorities for the plan for your next quarter, whatever your offer is, your launch is, be it a service, a program, or a product. I'm excited to get deeper, go a little further. We are in part 2 and working through steps 13 through 20 of 31 steps. So we'll be 2/3 of the way through. If you can bear with me this far, you need paper and pencil. If you've been with me before, you already know that. We will set a timer and take some time to work through some of these steps. And if I didn't give you enough time, the beautiful thing about a course like this that's pre-recorded is you can always stop the video and work a little deeper and come back later. You can also chop this course up into more bite-sized pieces. I will tell you that we do 2 things that I love and will always do, I think. One is in our program, we face-to-face in a Zoom room like this with lots of people in here, we do what they're calling speed round purposeful planning, where we go through the entire 31 steps in 90 minutes. So an hour and a half. As you can imagine, it is literally just an outline, a speed round. I thought we would go through it and people would be very frustrated. They would feel like they got stuck and they couldn't go as far as they wanted to go. But the consensus was pretty much unanimous. They all loved it. It gave them a really solid foundation on which to springboard into a deeper plan like this one. Number 2, we usually schedule a day each quarter away from our mastermind time when we do this. We go through this 4 to 6 hours of just really intense planning, and we get it done in one day. It's a personal preference for me. I'm exhausted by the end of the day, and they probably are too. But I don't like breaking it up. Something seems to always happen that we don't get back to part 3 when we split it into 3 different days, or if we waited a whole week. I can't even remember what I'm looking at my notes sometimes and I'm thinking, I don't know what I was talking about. So I love doing it in one fell swoop. Lots of stories of how that's worked for me in the past with nonprofit organizations, with strategic plans, with a plan like this as well, and how it's worked for some other people as well. So that's why you'll see us doing it that way. It is my suggestion that you block off a day. You just pretty much do a VIP day just for planning with a coach, with a group, or by yourself. No matter, it works. I love it that way. So that's why you're seeing us put it together this way. So let's get started on part 2. I'm going to get us started with a quick prayer, just to settle me, if not to help you settle and get ready to plan. Father God, I love this process. It is tried and true. It works so well. There's so much encouragement and empowerment at the end of it to see a bona fide and what would you call it? Concise and focused plan for the next quarter. I'm grateful, Lord, that you let us to do it and to do it this way, for every little nugget that you drop into our hearts and minds for your plan, because we want to be on a path that you've chosen for us, working out a plan that is in line with your with your desires for us and your hopes and dreams for us, as well as our own. So I just would pray that we would go through this, take a deep breath, take our time, be patient with ourselves, Lord, and be patient with you. Be quiet enough to hear from you each step of the way, Lord, and that at the end of it, we would begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel and the progress that we've made, and be passionately excited about being intentional and purposeful about finishing this plan, and then about launching it in the next quarter as well. Lord, may all we do every step of the way draw people to you and be something that brings you glory and honor. What could we ask for? That you would say you are proud of us, that we've done well at the end of this planning process. We ask your blessing over every teeny step of it, and we ask these things in Jesus Christ's holy name. Amen. All right, so let's get started. We're in part 2, where we're going to plan a little more purposefully. And we're doing steps 13 through 20 of 31 steps. So we are getting there. It goes really quickly at the end, because it's just a matter of patting ourselves on the back and moving forward. So step 13, pick one. So you should have, in the last steps 1 through 12, come up with pretty much one plan and 7 maybe steps that you want to take to make that plan a success. Pick one goal to plan for the next 3 months. Choose one goal to plan for 3 months. This is our quarterly plan. You are going to have to, if your plan is very broad, or if your goal is very broad or very general, you are going to have to hone it in and fine tune it before you really make much progress. So let's get started. See how far we can get. So let's talk about picking that one goal. I know if you're like me, you have a lot of goals, and it's really hard to pick one. How do you pick just one? It helps me to let go of some and focus on one when I remember that I will have several tasks or steps to complete under each major goal. I'm a list person. I want to see that list unfold. And then also to remind myself that I can come back to some of these other goals later. And the reward of finishing one plan, a goal, and actually putting it out there, launching it and completing it is, I get to start on a new one. And the other benefit is that I can reuse the one that I created. I don't have to do this process over and over and over every time. I love that. The approach to excellently mastering a plan is to choose this one goal, outline some crucial, actionable steps or tasks to complete that goal, and then be consistent until completion. I know it's easier said than done, but it really is possible. We've proved it over and over, and that's why we continue to put this together and refine it for you. So plan for one goal. You're more than likely to reach your goal when you write a specific plan for who, what, when, where, how, and why you will work toward that goal. When you focus on one goal at a time. When you make your daily actions consistent and repetitive until they become an established habit. You've heard it takes, 21 to 31 days to establish a routine, and somewhat nearer to 60 plus days to establish a more automatic habit. That's what we're headed for. So the way to master more things in the long run is to simply focus on one thing right now. Easier said than done, but it is possible. So be consistent. One of the things we love in our mastermind groups is the process outlined by C.J. Hayden in her best-selling book, Get Clients Now, a 28-day marketing program for professionals, consultants, and coaches. It works because she expertly helps you create a plan of action. Well, hers is a plan of action toward marketing what you've already planned to do. So we're in the planning stage. We're not in the marketing stage yet. And it's tailored especially to you and to your potential clients. And she shows you how to outline each and every step toward your goal in an action worksheet and a tracking worksheet. Our mastermind group helps hold each other accountable to a degree and encourages each other along the way. And the process is tried and true if you work the plan. And if your plan was solid before you got to the marketing stage as well. So when you talk about this one goal, I really want to work on 2 or 3 things at a time. It doesn't mean that when you're not working on this one goal over the next quarter, you won't have other tasks to do, some of them not even related to this goal. But it does mean that when you sit down to get a strategic block of time knocked out of work, knocked out before you, it's focused on this one goal and not a bunch of others until completion, until you're done. It's very exciting. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. If you, instead of working on a dozen tasks in a really mediocre way, you focus, follow one course until successful and complete that course with excellence, you can have an influence and impact on your world that is infinitely greater than you can imagine. So step 13, as you plan purposefully, is to make sure you've chosen one goal that you're going to plan over for the next 3 months, for the next quarter. Let's move forward. Let's take a minute and actually make sure you know what that one goal is. Let's take a minute, timer ready, and just write down my one goal to plan for the next 3 months is, and then make sure you've honed in and you know exactly what that is. Take a minute. My one goal to plan for 3 months is okay. If you don't have it written down, just a warning, you probably won't make it happen as well as you will once you have it written down. I would suggest write it down, put it on graphic design, hang it on the wall, sticky note it to your desk where you see it often. Step 14, you're going to choose certain measures or best practices that help you plot the best course of action. So now that you've set your priorities and you've established one goal, it's time to plot the course. Whenever you take a road trip, you don't get in your car and start driving in any old haphazard direction. You plan the trip, right? What's your destination? Budget, what dates, what's your method of transportation, what sort of foods and lodging are you going to need, where are you going to stop, how far are you going to try to drive between spots. You plug in the next address into your GPS and you carefully and strategically plot your course. And if you're like me, you pray there aren't too many reroutings. It always cracks me up when you hear the little voice on your GPS saying rerouting. I'm thinking, oh no, is it me? What have I done? Then you break your trip down into achievable chunks. I have a friend going from Oklahoma to North Dakota, and if you just go, it's 16 hours. But if you're hauling U-Haul and your car and you have kids in the car and you've got dogs in the car and all these things, it's going to take more than 16 hours, and they're going to have to stop. And they need to plan it out as efficiently as they possibly can, right? So you're going to break down how far can you ride until you need a break, and when and where are you going to need to stop for gas and food. And so in the same way, you plot and you subplot to achieve your goals as an entrepreneur in your business and ministry. So look at your top. I ended up with 7. Well, pardon me, 7 priorities to really make this one goal fly. And then I had the top 3, we sort of prioritized them, numbered them 1 through 3 or 1 through 5 or 1 through 7. And we put 3 stars beside the one that was going to be the biggest stretch and really challenge us. but still attainable, right? And I put 2 stars by the next one that was kind of going to stretch me, and 1 by one that was kind of going to stretch me as well. And those starred priorities ended up to be my tops of the 7. I had 7. It's different for everyone, but we're going to just look at our top 3. So you're going to have your notebook with you and be able to flip back and forth a little bit on this one. Pardon me. Each priority encompasses a major goal for the next 12 weeks. And you're going to make a list of all the tasks and steps that you need to take under your primary goal so that you'll succeed. According to Franklin Covey in the 4 disciplines of execution, they include lag and lead measures as part of your to-dos and your tasks and these list of steps that you're going to take to really make this happen. So for example, I struggle with his terminology, but then when you put it all together, it really makes sense. So bear with me if you haven't read his book. For example, let's say you want to have 3 more clients by the end of the next quarter. The goal to have 3 more clients is your lag measure. It is your primary goal. So for example, my primary goal came out to be, if it'll help you, I'll give you an example. My primary goal to plan for the next 3 months is to promote wellness in a unique and creative and fun way, using what I have in my hands and creating some new elements also to help others achieve extraordinary levels of success worth celebrating, other Christian entrepreneurs. I'll hone in and fine tune that a little bit more. It makes sense to me because I know exactly what I have in my hands already. And I also, because I've already made it in that list of 7, what are things that I already have in my hands that I can already use, and what are some new things that I want to create around what I already have in my hands for this wellness promotion or offer. So, but let's say you want to have 3 more clients by the end of the quarter. The 3 clients are your lag measure or your primary goal. Then there are tasks you're going to do every day to accomplish that lag measure or that primary goal, and those are called lead measures, and they're things you're going to do almost every work day to accomplish the bigger goal, and they lead you to your goal. Lead measures, they lead you to your goal. The lead measures to recruit 3 more clients, for example, if that's your primary goal over the next quarter, might be things like adhere to a 24-hour response to all inquiries regarding your services. You know, if you don't respond quickly, you might lose, your potential client might lose interest. Follow up with 3 previous inquiries each day. Reach out to 10 potential clients each day. Or what else can you think of? These are just examples to kind of get you started. So these lead measures turn into what we call best practices. And we're going to talk more about practices daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly practices. That's as far as we're going to go over some of the next and some of the next steps. So hang in there with me. So one of my examples, for example, my primary lag measure or my primary goal might have been to increase interactions and membership in the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs through reaching out and touching or getting to know you campaign. We're trying to reach out and touch and introduce ourselves to people in a very different way. So what would be your primary goal or your lag measure? So I had written down, to do that, I need to increase my activity, interactions, and engagements like loves and likes and wows and comments. And now we have hugs and click-throughs, and then participate in Pomodoro work sessions. We have virtual work sessions, to attend webinars, prayer calls, and specials according to social media analytics. I want to see, the way I will know that I've reached my goal of reaching out and touching and increasing interactions and membership in NACWE is by seeing these things. So this is still part of your primary goal, part of your lag measure. Take a minute and write out your primary goal. or lag measure, which we sort of already did, right? in the session before. But expand on it. So sorry, I'm going to start you over on the timer a little bit here. Expand on it a little bit. What will that look like? How will you know that that actually happened? If I want to promote wellness in a unique and creative and fun way, using what I have in my hands and creating new elements to help others, how will I know I've actually done that? So take a minute, think through that. Okay. Then your lag measure. Sorry, then your lead measure. Edit. So your lead measure. If I'm going to, once again, so let's use the example of I want 3 new clients in the next quarter. You know, it ought to be 3 new clients a day or a week or whatever, but let's just go with it. Then what are my lead measures? What am I going to do to make that happen? I'll interact and engage myself and with my team members on social media every day. Encourage participants by making comments on their posts and reaching out to them. Celebrate their birthdays and their anniversaries and their work anniversaries. We haven't been doing that. Reach out through private messaging and emails and texts and phone calls to each NACWE elite member. We have 2 membership groups, a basic membership group and an elite membership group every month, and reach out and through private messages and emails and texts and phone calls to each basic NACWE member at least quarterly. It's going to take a while to do that. So there's no way that I can get it done much faster than that. So what are your lead measures? If you look at your lag measure, your primary goal, what are some of the steps you're going to take so that you see results, and how are you going to see those results? Let's take a minute, maybe 2, to talk through lead measures. I'm going to set us for 2. We may not need that much, but let's see how far we can go. Getting a bit more specific, isn't it? Then we're going to start establishing next best practices. So, you know, I'm just going to spring ahead just a minute and just kind of give you the flavor of it. Some of the best practices I'm going to have to establish to see this primary goal, which is 3 new clients per week or month or whatever, quarter or whatever. And to follow through on some of these lead measures, like interacting myself and engaging and encouraging on social media and reaching out, private messaging, reaching out and touching in a very unique and special way. Some of these group members and everything is some of the best practices. They unfold maybe things like putting blocks of time on my calendar each work day, not every day, but each work day where I'm just really honed in on social media. For the next 25 minutes, I am going to be on social media, and then I'm going to get off. Maybe putting a strategic block of time on my calendar to give myself ample time. It's probably going to be more than 25 minutes to really do that. Reach out, leave a voice message, you know, type a text message or a Facebook message or something to people individually, because those need to be unique to that person, right? And the way that we've been interacting already. What can you think of? We're getting ready to go there. So let's hone forward. So step 14, as you plan purposefully, is to plot a good course. We want you to tell us about it if you can in our groups or wherever you're with us. Tell us, what's your primary goal? What was that lag measure? What were your lead measures? And then we're going to work on best practices to really put a great plan of action together. Keep these steps together where you can see them. If you need to stop the video or kind of put them together at the end of this part, when we get to step 20, do so, because you want to see this all if you can. If you can, you want to see it all on one page, so you know exactly where you're headed. One of the things we love about C.J. Hayden is she teaches you to do that, to see the entire action plan on one page and to be able to actually track it on one page as well. So it's easy, it's not so intimidating. Let's go forward to step 15. So step 15 is to start establishing and building upon these best practices. You'll tweak them as you go. They're not etched in stone. They're very unique to you. You might get some really great ideas. That's what I love about the group. You'll get some really great ideas, but they're unique to you, and you'll tweak them as you go, and you'll abandon the ones that don't work, and you'll retain the ones that do, right? So I live in Texas, allergies, so sorry. So 15, establish and build upon best practices. I looked up, I think that's a Franklin Covey terminology as well, and I looked it up. And so the synonyms I found for best practices were things like habits, customs, traditions, ways, systems, love that one, routines, procedures, rituals, manners, praxes. I'm going to use that one on a Scrabble game board. Methods, right? So anything that kind of helps you to establish steps to make your dream come true. That's it, all goes, all of those. It's all acceptable. So let's talk about tasks and to-dos. You're going to make a list of tasks and to-dos. So your practices, well, no surprise here, they're going to require a lot of practice. They are the to-dos and the tasks that you perform on a really regular basis. They're the things that help you achieve the goal in the long term. And without them, you're not going to make your dreams come true. So you're going to parcel this down. You're going to have a plan when we get done here. You may develop some practices to stay organized and keep you on task with your lag measures. For example, you might clean out your email inbox once a week instead of letting it distract you every day. Balance your business accounts at the end of each month instead of waiting until for every quarter, or even longer for some of us. You might show up on social media and maybe do a live video on a more consistent basis than you have before. What can you think of? You know what your primary goal is. You know what steps you've outlined to make some things happen for yourself. Let's take a minute and just think, what else can you think of that you're going to need to do on a daily or weekly basis, at least on a weekly basis, to keep up with your primary goal and the steps that you're taking. Let's take a minute. You're going to break down your priorities into smaller and smaller tasks and to-dos. You're going to notice you'll develop habits, obviously, that are recurring practices and systems and routines. There will be things you'll do in future plans you won't even really have to think about. I love that. The Lord is very clear, I love this, in Ephesians 4 and Colossians 3, that there are certain things we need to put off, and he makes that challenging step of putting off something even easier when he tells us what to put on. I love that as biblical counselor, that was one of the things we talked about with clients all the time. That he doesn't ask you to put something off without giving you a put on in its place. We don't function in a vacuum very well, and we miss things when we're not doing them anymore, even things we know maybe not really good for us. So he always tells us what to put on in that place. Revisit your eliminate and your put off list from your big dream list from the earlier steps in this workbook and process, and start thinking of some other things that you might need to put off of that list. But also we're going to talk about a few things you might need to just put off in general so that you're honed in on the primary goal that God's placed before you right now. What do you talk about put off? What do you need to eliminate further after going back and thinking through that, what you eliminated off of your list from earlier in the earlier steps of this process? But before you go too deeply, what are some practices you know are hindering your progress? I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is I play on my phone, and there've just got to be times that I put the phone in the drawer and it's not a distraction for me anymore. What can you think of? Let's take a minute, just one, and list a few things you feel like the Lord is asking you. So you're going to have a put off list and a put on list. List some things you feel the Lord is asking you to put off. Take a minute. Okay, let's take a minute to think of new practices you need to adopt, or maybe some old practices that really worked well for you. Well, I used to do this, but I don't do this anymore. It was very helpful for me, that you need to resurrect and bring kind of back into your life. As you plan each quarter, that's going to happen to you. You're going to think, these were things that really worked for me before. I'm going to re-adopt them or resurrect them. Can you think of some new practices you need to put on? Now, I'm going to give you a hint. When we did this the minute before, I found myself deciding something that God wanted me to put off and going ahead right then. You might have done the same thing and writing down the put on. So I might do that when we do these processes in the future, remind myself to do that. But for now, if you did it that way, keep doing it that way. And for now, let's just take a minute to think of things you need to adopt or resurrect or put on to really make your dream come true in this next quarterly plan. Take a minute. All right. So step 15, as you purposefully plan, is to establish and build upon best practices. If you need to, stop if you are not clear on this next sort of recap, stop the video and get it honed in, clear enough that you could leave the table right now and go type it up on one piece of paper and see it posted on the wall behind you and everything. Make sure my notes are very flim-flam and very sketchy, but I could take them and create that one page for myself. So that, think through. We're not going to stop and set a timer for it. We're just going to have you think through. What is your primary goal? Your lag measure. What is the one thing you're going to do to reach that goal? What are your lead measures? What are the 3, 5, 7 things you're going to map out to reach that goal, and you'll know? And how are you going to know that you actually reached that goal in the first place? These are things you should already have written down. And what are some, maybe 3, 5, 7 best practices so far that you've written down to make some of these things happen? We probably do need to take a little, we don't need to take a little bit more time on this because we're going to hone it out. What do you need to do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis to make this quarterly goal happen? So bear with me. That's what we're going to do next. We are ready for step 16. I don't know if you block off time the way that we do, but I'm going to kind of walk you through how we block off time so that we're really making things happen. Now, I have different terminology that I use for these processes, but we got this again from the 12-week year book, Brian Moran's book, I think. Let's walk through it. There's no doubt it's going to be overwhelming when you look at your to-do list, even when you've narrowed the scope down to a more manageable quarterly plan, and you know that you're managing your time. It's a challenge, though, for everybody, right? So I know you're excited. We're getting ready to really see it flesh out and watch it happen. We're getting ready to break down this huge God-given, big and abundant goal into daily, weekly, and monthly actionable steps. I have quarterly actionable steps in here, but when you're only planning for a quarter, the only quarterly actionable step I have is plan the next quarter. Right? So things are getting ready to really happen. Are you ready? Before we go there, let's walk through a practice that's really been a game changer for us in our groups with the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs and with Lindwall-Bourg masterminds. So, and it's time blocking. So time blocking is an easy solution to manage multiple responsibilities and get your time organized. It's easy to determine when you have open spaces to concentrate on your business or your home or your family. You kind of already have, if I asked you to map out what your schedule looked like last week, you'd be able to do it and you'd be able to see where blocks of time are. Perhaps you need to do that. It has been suggested that you literally map out an entire week in 30-minute increments so you know exactly what you do each week and where blocks of time are that you can move around and smudge around, and to maybe even color code those. And I've color coded them before based on the beliefs acrostic. Body, when am I attending to body, emotions, livelihood, intellect, environment, family, friends, and spiritual aspects of dimensions of wellness in my life. That gets a little bit out there, but it was fun and it was a real eye-opening experience. So where was I? Oh my gosh. So you can figure out where your open spaces were is what I was saying. So you're going to block off chunks of time on your calendar and you're going to stick to them as much as possible. So you know you're making the best use of your time and you're following up on the best practices to reach this one goal. So consider how long it takes you to perform a task in the first place. For example, it might take 1 or 2 hours to write a blog, 30 minutes to edit it, and an hour to post it, and that's not unrealistic for those of you who are bloggers. When you use time blocking, you're going to set aside a 2 or 3 an hour block of time to focus on blogging and posting the blog alone. And then the next few hours you might spend doing housework or going out to dinner with the family. Maybe the kids come home from school and you plan dinner and homework hours together. You can round out your workday with a half hour devoted to posting and responding to social media when you're relaxed and ready to do that. So the way that as a group, when we read through the 12-week year by Brian Moran and Michael Lennington, the way that he laid it out was as such. He called the 3 major blocks of time to really make things happen for yourself in your business and ministry: buffer, breakout, and strategic blocks of time. I have different terminology for those. I call them miscellaneous, escape, and intentional blocks of time. So we're going to use my terminology, but you'll get the picture. It's very easy. It's not rocket science. So it changed my mindset about setting and accomplishing goals, and it just made things so much easier for me. He encourages you to plan for 12 weeks instead of 12 months and then focus on those 12 weeks first to reach your primary goal. He suggests, so this miscellaneous block or portion of time during the week is the times that you schedule maybe 30 minutes here and 30 minutes there throughout the week. And these times are set aside to take care of really time-consuming things that they're going to help you buckle down and get the bulk of your work done because you got them done and you're not stuck or hindered because they're staring you in the face. So some of my examples were cleaning off your desk, catching up on answering emails. Oh my goodness, that's a big one for me. Setting appointments, making a quick phone call, maybe even journaling first thing in the morning when you know you really only have about 25 minutes or 30 minutes of a miscellaneous block of time to really crank that out. So what would you add? I want you to make a list in your notes of what is a miscellaneous block of time. Remember, that's about 30 minutes, and it can be as many times a day or as many days as you want. It doesn't have to be 5 days a week. It's up to you. It depends on what you need and what your schedule looks like. So you're going to make a list of, miscellaneous blocks of time, escape blocks of time, and then intentional blocks of time. So we just walked through what are those tasks you need maybe 25 or 30 minutes to do, and really otherwise you could sit there for 3 hours doing them and you're still not done, like cleaning off your desk or catching up on answering emails and things like that. Take a minute, and not even a whole minute probably, and just start making a list of miscellaneous things you can do during that 30-minute miscellaneous block of time. Here we go. I need a 30-minute break every now, sometimes just a 5-minute, but sometimes a 30-minute break to just reset, just refocus, shift gears. That's what I call it. The next block of time I'm going to call an escape block of time. He suggested, these are times, usually he suggested 3 or 4 hours, and he suggested that you schedule a 3 or 4 hour block of, I'm going to call it escape block of time every week. He suggested right in the middle of your work week. I found that really fascinating. I can do that. I'm an entrepreneur, and I actually work really, really hard on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Not so hard on some of the other days, and I do take my weekends off, or try to. And so it's not that difficult for me to take a block of time in the middle of the week, but not everybody can do that. And if you have a full-time job, you're working for corporate America, or your schedule is dependent, your family schedule is dependent on your schedule or whatever, not everybody can do that. I found that a fascinating and challenging thing to do, and really beneficial. When I take half of a morning off, 3 or 4 hours of my Wednesdays off, I'm amazed at how energized I am to get back into the swing of things for a full day on Thursday and for a few hours on Friday. It has really worked for me. So give it a whirl right in the middle of your work week if you can. This is a big deal for me, but I've been able to rearrange my schedule so that I have that half a day off every Wednesday, and actually a half a day off on Fridays as well. And I'm getting more done instead of less done than I ever did before. These escape blocks of time might include anything you want that breaks up your structured and scheduled work week and kind of gives you a recharge. So some examples that I wrote down are, maybe you take a nap. I am not a nap person. Oh, how I wish. But maybe you take a nap, or maybe you go for a walk, or you go out and take pictures of, the scenery outside, or you go to a movie, or you meet a friend for lunch. Take a minute, no more than that, and just write down some of your favorite things to do. If you literally have a 3 or 4 hour escape block of time to do that, to escape the routine and recharge, what would that look like? Came up with a lot more things than I thought I was going to. That was really fun. Okay, then he suggests what I'm going to call intentional blocks of times. These times, they're my favorites, are 2 to 3 hour blocks of times, as often as you wish, set aside strategically throughout your work week, during which you get rid of all distractions. I mean, for me, that means literally putting my phone in the drawer and locking the door to my office sometimes. Most people understand if my office door is closed, that I'm really buckled down. And focusing on one task until it's done, or until the time is up. So in other words, that means I'm not going to work on 4 or 5 different things. I'm going to focus and hone in on one intentional task during that time that's truly, and it's a task that's going to grow your business and ministry, your entrepreneur endeavors. So suggestions were writing a newsletter, or a sales page, or a chapter in a book, creating a part of a new course, maybe updating your website or your social media forums, maybe holding a webinar or a seminar, or recording a podcast. You know, I didn't write a blog, but it takes me that much. If I'm going to write it, edit it, create art for it, post it, schedule it, you know, tell it all the social media places to go, etc. It takes so a blog, that would be one of mine. It takes me about that long, really, to get a good blog out there. And I admit I also have some help with my blogs as well. So let's take 1 minute and just think through, what would you put in this intentional, purposeful, the strategic block of time that's 2 or 3 hours to focus on one task that you know is going to enhance your business and ministry and larger borders, like Jabez said. Take a minute. Ah, all right. Time is really tricky. We know that. I don't know. I often feel it's my enemy. And then I remind myself that, you know, God had a plan, right? With every decade, year, quarter, month, week, day, hour, minute, second of my life. I can trust him with this. In Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 through 8, part of verses 1 through 8, it says, "For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven." I don't know about you, I'm old enough to remember the song. I don't know, was it in the 60s or 70s or what, about this verse. "For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing." Remember also Matthew 6:33, we've talked about, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." Keep these blocks of time in mind as you begin to move forward, and we schedule and plan best practices that we will work through on a daily, weekly, monthly, maybe on a quarterly basis to help you make your big dreams come true and to accomplish your most important goals. I'm so curious to know what this looks like when it really is retyped and cleaned up and on 1 or 2 pieces of paper right in front of you. If you're willing to share them with me, I'll send you something. I'll send you a PDF version of the book, the Purposeful Planning book or something like that. You remind me that I said that in public, recorded. Let's move on to the next piece. Step 17. We're talking about this intentional block of time, and I'm telling you, this is one of the most amazing tools. I've mentioned Shelley Hitz of the Christian Book Academy already before. She taught me a lot about planning. She introduced me to some books. I've mentioned her a couple of times. I'll mention her again here. The first real weekend-long writing retreat I ever attended was a game changer for me, a life changer for me. And at that writing retreat, it was very structured. There was an hour or two to do this and to do that. And when we weren't doing that, we were doing something else. The schedule was all mapped out for me, which worked really well for me. I'm a very structured person. I love to follow a leader and the rules. I love to follow the rules. So she introduced us to the Pomodoro technique. If you've never used it before, if you've used it before, bear with me or skip this section of the presentation. But if you've never used it before, it's something you really ought to at least give a try. The Pomodoro technique is one of our favorite, absolute favorite tools. It's a tool you can use to reach your objectives, really make it happen. It was created, we think, by Francis Cirillo, who's the owner of Cirillo Consulting in Berlin, and he created this Pomodoro technique as a time management tool to improve productivity and efficiency, to find ways to achieve better results with less time and effort. And millions of people have used it. It's transformed lives. It's made them more productive, more focused. It teaches you to work within a time frame instead of struggling against a time frame. And it's very simple to learn and life-changing for us. It was life-changing to use. I've heard several times that Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato, and he used a tomato-shaped timer. Thus, he gave the technique the name Pomodoro technique. I don't know if that's tried and true, but I thought it was fascinating. Made me want to go out and buy a tomato timer. So I don't know what your timer is like. Mine is on my laptop most of the time. That's where I'm working anyway, or on my phone if I'm not working on my laptop. And I use, it's www.onlinetimers.com/Pomodoro-timers. I think that's what it is, or you might just do, since we don't use www very often anymore, http://online-timers.com/Pomodoro-timers. And when you go to onlinetimers.com, you'll see all sorts of other timers, stopwatches, all sorts of things that you can use as well. But Pomodoro, that word is right there front and center. The process helps you to manage time toward productivity and efficiency. Here's the way it helps you, and here's how it enhances your task. I just sort of tried to break it down. It helps you improve motivation, eliminate burnout. I need that. It helps me to communicate to my team. It helps to manage distraction and handle interruptions. I mean, that block of time is sacred. It reduces tension and fear around what you're working on. It helps you to gain confidence. Every time a 25-minute timer goes off and I look and see what I've accomplished, I'm ready to tackle the next 25 minutes. It helps you to kind of shift gears, which is hard for me when I feel stuck. And then it helps you attend to yourself, your self-care. Because during the 5-minute, we work 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute break. During the 5-minute break, you really need to stop what you're doing, get up, shift gears, take a walk, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, maybe grab a snack. I don't know. You need to do something to care for you. And you have a tendency to feel that taking that break is going to mess you up, kind of get you off your groove. But in fact, it enhances it most times. We have had some people who have said, this won't work for me. For example, I'm writing a fiction book. If I was writing a nonfiction book, that would work for me, but I'm writing a fiction book, and writing a fiction book requires me some time just to get back into my character, and I won't be able to do that in just 25 minutes. Most of the time, when they've tried it, they've come back and said, I was wrong. It actually did work for me. And another great example, at the university that I went to for my PhD degree, they did master's thesis, PhD dissertation boot camps. And you had to commit. If you signed up for it, you had to show up at the library every day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, meaning you had to take off from work and family and everything. And they walked you through, they gave you lots of trainings, shifted gears a lot, made sure you were hydrated and eating healthy, and brought in guest speakers. And then in between all of this, you had these 2-hour blocks of time where you were supposed to literally sit down and hone in on your thesis or your dissertation, and they were right there if you had questions or got stuck or needed help or anything. It was an amazing process for me. It worked really well for me. And I talked to them about the Pomodoro. It was a 2-hour block time, right? So I said, oh, have you ever heard of the Pomodoro's technique where you work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, work for 25, take a 5-minute break? Let's try that. And several people who said, oh, this is a dissertation or a thesis. This is, your magnum opus practically. There's no way that's going to work. Came back later and said, it actually worked for them. So I thought that was just the cat's meow. What else do you need besides these things? Improved motivation, eliminating burnout, etc. What else do you need that you're thinking, this would work for me, and in fact, this is the way it's going to help me? Think about that for not even a full minute, just for a second. The way it enhances a task you might be working on is it sort of helps you balance tasks. Mistakes are lessened. You think they're going to increase, but in fact they lessen. There have been lots of studies on this technique. It actually reduces the length of your work session on that task instead of increases it. It helps you to simplify and organize, improves your content, reduces complexity. I have a tendency, I can make the easiest things complex. And it helps you to meet deadlines. What else do you need in the area of enhancing the task that you think might be met by the Pomodoro technique? Take a few minutes or a few seconds for that. Before you start this intentional block of 2.5 hours of time, you're going to want to gather everything you need. You're going to want to make a commitment to spend these 25 uninterrupted minutes on this one task that you've chosen to set before you. It's just 25 minutes. You're going to have to block off a 2 to 2.5 hour period of time to really get the work done. You're going to choose the one task that you're going to work on, and it's something that deserves your full undivided attention. It is an intentional or a strategic task. You're going to have to define your objectives during these next 2 hours. This is what I want to see happen. Predict somewhat how much time and effort it's going to take you. You'll have to be flexible with that. Plan out how you're going to handle interruptions. I mean, I've had to lock the door before. I've had to go to the office when too many people were at my home office or vice versa. Stick to your plan. Focus on being efficient, not perfectionistic, but thorough and efficient. What else can you think of that you might need to do before you even get started? Take just a few seconds to think through that. I'm reminded we used to have a sign on the door in the private practice counseling office that said "in session." I think I need an in session sign. All right, this is what it looks like. If you've done this before, bear with me. You're going to set your timer or use the online timer, the Pomodoro timer online. You're going to set your timer. It automatically does it for you. When you click the button, it starts counting down 25. So you're going to set your timer for 25 minutes of intense work, 5-minute break. 25, 5, 25, 5, 25. That equals 2 hours. You might need some setup time right before and after, which is why I said maybe 2.5 hours. You're going to work diligently. 2 Timothy 2:15 in the English Standard Version says, find it. Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. You're going to work diligently on this one task. You're going to manage distractions. If you suddenly realize you have something else you need to do, write it down on a sheet of paper, put it aside for later so it won't keep you distracted now. You're going to track your progress. Every 25 minutes, I write down what I did, just a few words, not details, but just a few words of what I did in that 25-minute time. Do take your 5-minute breaks. Breathe, meditate, grab a cup of coffee or a glass of water, go for a short walk, do something else relaxing, something not work related, very important. Take a longer break after every 4 Pomodoro 25-minute sessions, which is 2 hours. What they suggest is that you need a longer break than 5 minutes, at least 15 or 30 minutes if you're going to come back and try a second 2-hour block of time. I'm kind of unable to do 2 right in a row. I really need even more of a break, probably than that, like an hour and a half or whatever. So I don't usually schedule 2 Pomodoro or intentional blocks of 2 to 3 hours of time in more than one a day. I can't do more than one a day. So take a longer break. Your brain will use that time to kind of assimilate. You'll still be thinking about your project sometimes. You'll assimilate new information, but you're going to really get a good rest before your next work session, and then come back and do it again. That's the Pomodoro technique. I have in the book and in the handouts that are posted here kind of put a Pomodoro checklist together of what I need to really make it a success. So step 17, as you plan purposefully, is to try this. It doesn't work for everybody, but really, I actually haven't really met anybody who said it didn't work for them once they really gave it a good old college try. So we in Karen Board Companies and the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs do this together, small group of us together, every single Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And we are in a Zoom room. We can kind of see each other. And when we really buckle down during those 25 minutes, we mute our audio and we hide our video so we're not a distraction to anybody. And we have a little timer up in the corner kind of walking us through. It has been one of the most precious times because we do take the first 15 minutes to say, hello, what are you working on and how can we pray for you? And we do actually pray. Then we buckle down for the 2-hour blocks, the Pomodoro block of time. And then we come back again at the end of that that last section. We have 15 minutes left before we say goodbye. And we'll just say, how did that go for you? We're not an accountability group. We're not holding each other accountable per se. But it is nice to be able to say, well, it was kind of a distracted morning, but I still got things done, or I really cranked it out. I got some work done. Here's what I got done. Sometimes we share a little piece of it. We don't have time to do much more than that. And we pray out and go. We're inviting you to come to those. They're free. You can come and go. It won't work really if you come and go, but you can come on Monday and not on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You can come every day. It totally depends on what you need and what your schedule will allow, but it's kind of neat to think that you're in a virtual cubicle right next to somebody else who's also buckling down and getting the work done like you are. It's really neat. So join us. If you need to find the links to get into that Zoom room, they are on nacwe.org/calendar or karenborg.com/calendar. The calendar's right there. Every hour is lined out for you what we have to offer. And if it's free, when you click on it, it tells you exactly how to pop in. And how often. It tells you everything you needed, everything you ever wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask. We're almost done with this section. Step 18 is to start mapping out these practices based on what am I going to do on a daily, a weekly, and a monthly basis. So let's do that. You do need sort of a calendar set up, or at least I've got my page sort of lined out daily. We align a space for daily, a space for weekly, a space for monthly, and a space for quarterly. So let's buckle down and see where we go with this really quickly. One of the daily practices that works best for me is that 25-minute, I called it miscellaneous, I think. block of time to get small tasks out of the way before I buckle down to a larger, more demanding task, because those things distract me. They keep me stuck to a degree. So then I can enjoy showing up for the NACWE Pomodoro sessions, that 2.5-hour intentional block of time. We show up in the Zoom room and we do the Pomodoro style technique. That blocked off time has allowed me to set aside a very blessed 2.5 hours to work on other practices. What are things you're going to focus in on, hone in on a daily basis? I mean, on a daily workday basis, right? You're not going to do probably much of anything other than seek the Lord and pray and read his word on 7 days a week. But when we talk about daily practices, we're essentially talking about your work days. What have you, as you blocked off to actually buckle down and get to work? So common daily practices during this block of time might be journaling, returning phone calls, setting a limited time to answer emails. If I don't set a 25-minute timer, I'll be there 2 hours later. Spending specific time on posting to social media. Again, you could look up and realize you've been sitting there for an hour and a half when you really only wanted to sit there for a quarter of an hour or something. Writing blog posts. What can you think of? Take a moment to consider things you might do daily when you have work days blocked off. We'll spend about 1 minute on this and move straight forward. All right. I found myself writing things that I want to do on a daily basis that aren't necessarily related to my, to reaching this goal, this quarterly goal, but I think that's okay, because you're going to distract you if you're not getting them done. If you work on daily practices, you'll be helped to establish daily routines for getting things done. Setting up regular practices is a huge part of the purposeful planning process. And with all practices and planning, I highly recommend putting these things on your calendar. If you're like me, if it's not on the calendar, it usually doesn't take priority, and sometimes it doesn't get done at all. So remind yourself, what's your primary goal? Your lag measure, that one thing you want to see happen, and how are you going to know? What's it going to look like when it actually is happening and progress is being made? What are your lead measures, or the steps you're going to take to make that happen? And what are your best practices? How are you going to block off that short miscellaneous block of time during the week? Are you going to do it daily? How many days are you going to put that on your calendar? What about an intentional block of time of 2 hours, 2.5 hours? Then consider what you need to do on a weekly basis. The same routine day after day can become a challenge for lots of reasons. You probably need to set up a day each week to accomplish certain tasks in your 12-week plan that don't require you to be sitting in front of your computer on a daily basis. For example, on certain days of the week, I'm going to do the weekly tasks in a different color, so get your ink pens and markers ready. On a certain day of the week, you might worship on a Sunday or a Saturday. Maybe attend a networking meeting each week, or hold your own meeting, or maybe those are monthly, I don't know. Plan is, had a coach who taught us to plan our week before the week started, so you had it already written down. You didn't have to really spend a lot of time and energy on it. Also, to plan your day the night before instead of first thing in the morning worked really well for me. Maybe write, maybe journal, maybe take a course, something you wanted to study or you wanted to learn. And don't forget, go out for pizza night or whatever. Take a minute to think of things related to the plan, but maybe not all related to the plan, that you're going to need to tackle at least on a weekly basis. Maybe not every day, maybe not every work day, but at least on a weekly basis. Let's take a minute. All right, this is, as it's unfolding, some of these things are going to be on your planning worksheet or planning, schedule and calendar. I'm really excited to see this kind of unfold. What else did you think of? Again, you're going to put these events on your calendar, even though they may be scheduled once a week or twice a week. You're going to protect the scheduling of these weekly practices. You're going to schedule around them if at all possible. Honor the time you've set up for yourself. You would honor an appointment you have with someone else. Honor the appointment you have with you. They're essential to making your dreams come true. They're the foundation of accomplishing everything that you have purposefully planned to accomplish. Then let's talk about things you're going to do on a monthly basis. It depends. This is all tailored to you and all tailored to what you love to do to make your dream come true. But there are things you may only need to do every other week, or maybe do once a month because they're huge, or because they just don't fit into the plan. So there's some things that can wait. Of course, they have to be done, but maybe not today, maybe not even this week. So when you organize your tasks into daily and weekly and monthly categories, you're able to focus on the specific tasks that get you closer to your goals. Personally, I tend to do another brain dump of all the things I need to do at the beginning of each new month. And yes, it's going to be somewhat repetitive of what I'd already put on my dream list and kind of narrowed down on my dream list, but oftentimes I find that something pops up that I hadn't thought of before, or something pops up and I realize it's done. Somebody else did it. I delegated it to somebody else, or I finished it the first week or two of the quarter. I really don't need to keep it up, and I can mark it off my list. It's very refreshing for me. It's totally up to you, but I like to do another brain dump at the beginning of each month. I list everything that needs to be done that month, sometimes even a bit further into the future. And here's the kicker for me. Crazy Karen here. I think I have to do it all today. So this brain dump does two things for me. It kind of overwhelms me, and I have to talk my way through it. Is sometimes something happens in my brain and I get this dire urgency, thinking I have to get everything done as fast as possible. It overwhelms me. It's a bit self-defeating when you talk about purposeful planning. So the way around this, if you're like me at all, is to figure out what needs to be done regularly based on the day and the week and the month and the quarter. Monthly activities, some examples I wrote down are meetings and events. Like for the NACWE team, Karen Board Company's team, we don't have to meet every week. We used to. It kind of depends on what's going on. I am not the kind of person that's going to go, I'm an introvert. I'm not going to go to a networking meeting every week, but I will go to a networking meeting once a month or once a quarter. Maybe planning and outlining your social media posts for the next month or quarter. I love getting those all out and ready to go. Maybe planning and outlining your newsletters for the next month or the next quarter, or planning and outlining your blogs for the next month or the next quarter, or planning and outlining. We do quarterly retreats, writing retreats. I do quarterly VIP coaching days for my clients. And maybe I have to plan the next year's conference, but you can't wait until the quarter before the conference to plan the conference. It's got to be certain elements of conference planning that I do. Maybe not every month, but at least I need to look at it every month and attend to something on the list every month, or I'll be overwhelmed at the end. Take a minute and think of things that you might do on a every other week or monthly basis, because they just don't need to be done quite that often, but you cannot neglect to do them. Take a minute and work through, see what you get. I would love to be a fly on the wall and know what you thought of. As you have fleshed these out, go back and think, what were daily practices? What were weekly best practices? What were monthly best practices? And then start thinking of things you might need to do quarterly to attend to on a quarterly basis. So you're going to make sure all these items, of course, have been filtered through and aligned with your purpose and your why and your core values and your mission statement and your vision statement. They align with your God-given calling and your primary goal for the next, not just for the next 90 days, but your ultimate goal to bring God glory and honor. Put these things on your calendar. If they're not on your calendar, they're probably not going to happen. Let's talk for a minute about quarterly practices, and then we're almost done. When you implement this 12-week or 90-day or quarterly purposeful planning strategy, there's a natural rhythm that starts to form, and there's a consistent tendency to reevaluate your goals and your steps at the end of every 3 months instead of waiting until the end of the year, right? So it's our goal to plan together quarterly. Every new quarter becomes a time to congratulate and reward ourselves for everything we accomplished last time, and then to begin planning forward what we want to do with the next quarter. It's a great time to keep in mind which of the practices we put in place over the last quarter worked, what didn't work as well as it could have. And it's a great relief, a time of relief, because you don't get stuck in a pattern that isn't working for you. It's time to reset and celebrate. Quarterly practices also might include doing things. So between, I try to make sure even in our mastermind that we have a week or even sometimes 2 off between each quarter without messing up the quarter, because we need a break. So you might include every quarter taking a little vacation, a break from your work routine, even one that works as well as this one does. And some reset and celebration goals you can set. So here's some ideas are, I don't know, how do you celebrate? Do you take yourself out to special dinner? I don't know. But think of how you celebrate and put that on your list right away. I wrote, celebrate. Record your best practices in some detail so you can keep up with the good work you've done. Reevaluate and tweak or eliminate any practices that didn't work well for you. Take a badly needed long weekend or even a week-long break or vacation. Nothing's going to fold up. while you're gone, believe me. Close up some loose ends and complete a monthly or weekly task that just never got done for whatever reason. Balance your books. Not my favorite thing to do. Prepare for the next launch. You've already been thinking, let's admit it. You've already been thinking about it. What offer, service, program, or product or other thing are you going to launch the next quarter? You can't wait till the last minute to start putting it together. You've been thinking about it. Recruit and schedule presenters for educational programs. That's one thing I have to do every quarter, and I try to stay a quarter ahead. Usually works. Continue working toward our yearly conference for us. Dream bigger for all of us. Take a minute and tell me what you, or write down what you can think of that you know you're going to need to do. Maybe not every month, every other month, every third month, every quarter, and make a list for yourself that you'll put on your worksheet later. That was interesting. Thought of something I hadn't thought of. Keep in mind that some of these tasks might have to be broken down on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis if this the next event is coming up really soon. You're going to have to, these are fluid. They move from one list to the other pretty well. So consider, what were your daily practices, weekly, monthly, and now quarterly. We're getting towards the end. Let's plow forward. Inviting you to join us for those Pomodoro work sessions or for our PDF 2 mastermind. It stands for Plan, Design, and Follow Through. We go through this plan together every quarter, planning to launch a new product or service or program. It depends on you, what you're launching. The next thing we do is we map out a tried and true marketing strategy based on the plan you just created, so that you know exactly what you're going to do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis all the time for 28 days to get it out there. It has worked like a charm. We invite you to join us for that at karenborg.com/plan, design, follow through for the PDF program. And then what we do the next part of the quarter is literally follow through, tie up some loose ends, follow through on things that maybe didn't get completed, tweak them and change them if the system wasn't working exactly the way we wanted to and we discovered a better way. We invite you to join us. We also quarterly have writing retreats. It doesn't matter if you're writing a book, a booklet, a journal, handouts and worksheets, PowerPoints, blogs, newsletters. It doesn't matter what you're writing. If you're writing something and you want to do it in a group, there's so much power in doing it in a group. We do this in East Texas at the lake, at the Rama Lakeside Retreat Center, almost every quarter. This year we're only doing 3 of them, but we plan on doing even more. 2 more things and then we're done with this portion of our process. The 19th step out of our 31 steps is to just get rid of practices that one of our team members just called piddly. She said, poo the piddly practices. It's time to just knock some of these things out. We've kind of done this already, but it's time to hone in and be honest and get rid of some stuff. These practices are the things that need to be done that you probably consider kind of mundane. Obviously, they could be things that don't need to be done at all, and you're going to get rid of them. But some of these Piddly practices are things that need to be done and you consider them mundane. They just drive you crazy. They frustrate you. They distract you. But they can't be skipped or things are going to get out of hand. At home, they can include household tasks that help you keep your peace of mind, like loading the dishwasher or keeping up with the laundry or taking out the trash, sorting the mail, sweeping the porches, meal planning, grocery shopping. Staying on top of piddly practices can be a source of great frustration, but in the end, it's going to help you stave off overwhelm when you're an entrepreneur. I've confessed to some things. Loading the dishwasher. Once I discovered I could actually load the whole dishwasher in the time it took for my coffee to brew, I felt so free. I had no idea. I just tried it one morning while the coffee was brewing, and I'm just standing there watching it drip, right? And thought, wonder if I could just load the top of the dishwasher or just the silverware. And I got the whole thing done. I was so excited. Keeping up with the laundry, I only do laundry on the weekends, and one of our sons helps me fold and hang. That is a godsend for me. Taking out the trash, the new deal. I take it to one level and dear husband Fred does the rest. So we kind of have a system going. I'll get it this far and you take it all the way out to where it needs to go. We live on a farm, so it's a little different than living in the city. Sorting the mail. Instead of letting it pile up, so I see this big stack, which is mostly junk mail anyway, and it totally overwhelms me. I try to sort it as it comes in. I'm not good at that on a daily basis, but I'm trying to get better at that. Sweeping the porches. Well, when the little adorable kids come over, we make this task into one of our outdoor time things to do, and they kind of help me, which kills two birds with one stone. We're outside. Well, maybe more than two birds. We're outside. We're getting sun. We're enjoying our time together. They feel they've accomplished. Sometimes they get an allowance or something, and then I feel like it got done. They notice things I don't notice as well. Meal planning and grocery shopping, my confession. I can barely do toast. I do not cook. So I haven't figured this one out yet. And if you have a solution for me, I would love to hear what it is. I don't have a solution for that. What is on your at-home list? I'm going to ask you to take a minute to walk through this because it will help you to move it off of your plate and help you hone in on what is on your work and ministry list. So take a minute. What is on your home list? Let's crank it out here. All right. Matthew 10, 30 to 31. Are not two sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. But even the hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows. He cares about us. Every hair on our head is counted. Every second of our life is already counted. He cares enough about the sparrows. We know he cares about us. He's given us the amount of time we need and the tasks we need to do to succeed. We don't need to overthink this. I just needed that encouragement when making these lists. Is kind of starting to drive me crazy. I don't know if it's doing that for you too. So let's talk about work practices. At work, piddly practices might differ. Of course, they're going to differ from person to person and from business to business and from ministry to ministry. But some of those mundane practices that have to be done include cleaning out your email inbox, shopping for work. I hate shopping. Gathering tools for all of your projects, making phone calls, editing, anything, creating graphics, posting most things on social media, remembering celebration days. There's so many things. I wrote out some of my confessions to see if they might help you. Cleaning out the email inbox. Oh my gosh. I have one of our NACWE members years ago said, you know what, at the end of every month, create a folder under your inbox for that month and go ahead and move everything over there. You didn't delete them. They're there if you need them. You can still search through them. You can still do a general search and find things in them. But they're out of your way, and you don't look at your email inbox and think 2,200 emails, there's no way I'm going to ever get through these. And you're probably encouraged to go through that email inbox on a more frequent and consistent basis. Shopping for work, I don't know, I hate shopping. Luckily there's Amazon. Gathering tools for each project, setting it out and cleaning it all up kind of drives me crazy. So I've kind of mapped out a place in my office, especially in my home office, where I can have a zone for each kind of work task or station. And that's really helped me a lot if you have that much space. Making phone calls, I'm an introvert, I hate the phone, but if I put this task on my calendar with some time limits, once I dive in, I actually usually end up enjoying it. Editing anything, I never seem to finish because I'm a perfectionist. So I edit once and then I send it to someone on the team to edit. They're far better at it than I am anyway. When you're editing your own work, you don't see. You read it the way you wanted it to sound. You don't always see your mistakes. So praise the Lord for all these editing tools. Creating graphics, honest. When I tend to do it by myself, I end up having to get help anyway. I'm constantly saying to someone on the team, can you clean this up? I kind of got it started, but I don't like the way it looks. I hire a creative someone most of the time to do this for me. Posting things on social media, thank God for schedulers, right? Like CoScheduler, Hootsuite, or Facebook Scheduler, or Post Planner. I don't know what we would do without those tools. Remembering celebration days, I really don't do. I do want to say happy birthday to you. I do want to know when your anniversary is. I would love to know when your work-anniversary is. It is the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs' 10th birthday, May 2020, May 11th, 2020. And I want to remember birthdays like that. And how long have I been with it? And how long was the original founder, Diane, with it? And those things are important to me. I really do want to remember those things, but I don't have that one down to a fine art. I need help with that one. I don't know what the answer to that one is. If you have an answer, I'd love to hear it. Let's take a minute. We're almost done. We have one more step to do before we're finished. Let's take a minute and make a list of things you know are on your work list. Piddly practices, things you need to whack out of the ballpark on your work list. Let's take a minute. Last step, and we're in part 2, and we're going to take a break and we'll come back later for part 3. Things are going to move a little faster once we get to part 3, and obviously really fast once we get through part 3 and ready to do parts 4 and parts 5. So the last step is to set boundaries and be really proactive about it. You're going to wonder maybe what boundaries have to do with purposeful planning. But if you have read the book Boundaries by Henry Cloud and John Townsend, Boundaries, when to say yes, how to say no, to take control of your life, you should read it. Go back and skim through it again if you've already read it. Your plan's not going to work smoothly until you learn what to say yes to and when, and until you learn what to say no to and when, and you take control of your plan. This is a daily challenge for me. I admit it. I think everybody would be shaking their heads and saying yes to that. That's true. You don't have to say yes to everyone's requests or take responsibility for the plans of others. You do need to focus on your God-given plan within your own limits. There's a freedom in that, a great freedom in that. It's possible to set legitimate boundaries in a loving way, manage your relationships and your plan even in this digital age, and to do this without feeling guilty or afraid or selfish. That's difficult for me. If you don't establish boundaries that you can enforce and others will respect, it'll be very difficult to stick with your plan. They allow you to stick with your practices and your time blocks. Keeping good boundaries allows you to honor the things you put on your schedule and gives you the space to honor your own wishes and your own dreams. Setting healthy boundaries makes me more, not less, available for family and friends and at more appropriate times. What do you need to do to set healthy and legitimate boundaries? We're going to take a minute on this one. Make a prayerful decision about your yeses. Make a prayerful decision about your no's, and then commit to stick to your convictions. In the long run, even the complainers in your life will be healthier, and so will you, and you'll accomplish your dreams so much faster. Let's take just 1 minute and ask the Lord what sort of boundaries, healthy and legitimate boundaries, need to be set right now before you put this plan out there on your calendar so that you reach your goals and your dreams. That's a minute. I probably need to spend more time on that one. But, go ahead and take our large break before we come back for the next section. Spend some quality time on this, asking God prayerfully, what do I need to say yes to? What do I need to say no to? Just thought of another one. I'd love to hear some of the things that you thought of. I mean, obviously, I'm going to have to put my phone in the drawer more often. If you've never taken time away from your phone, I try to do it a week a year. No phone, no technology whatsoever. So you've got to be really proactive about this. Prepared Christians are ready to act. Therefore, they're proactive. We need to be proactive, purposefully acting instead of reactive or acting after the fact to things. Jesus tells us we have to be ready. Be ready for his return. You too be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not expect. Luke 13:40. Paul tells us to be ready. Be ready for every good deed. Remind them to be subject to rulers, to authorities, to be obedient, to be ready for every good deed. Titus 3:1. And Peter tells us to be ready to give an answer to everyone who asks about our hope. There's some prep work in being ready, you guys. 1 Peter 3:15 says, "But sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you." You have to be proactive and purposeful to be prepared and to be ready. I don't know about you. I've spent way too many entrepreneurial hours passively reacting to what happens to me. And within my own organization, it almost always leads me to frustration and to miscommunication. You want to be proactive. And setting boundaries and planning purposely need to be some of the most proactive things you do as an entrepreneur. Purposeful planning is a proactive process. I mean, obviously, we have a notebook full of notes to put together to synthesize into a really great plan. It includes putting things on your calendar and not moving them within reason, of course. Life in general often influences your planning to an extent, but proactive planning will help you keep your yes and your no commitments for your business somewhat sacred. Passive reacting involves putting out fires, for example, reacting to an email instead of writing the blog post you intended to write. There's a time for every season. There's a season for everything, right? Proactive planning enables you to honor your plan and wait until later to answer that email. When you plan proactively and purposefully, you stay focused on your daily practices, your routine, and your goals. What does 1 minute, and we're going to pray out and go, what does a more proactive plan as opposed to passive reacting look like in your organization? Let's take a minute and then I'll tell you what I had come up with. Very interesting. I wrote in the book, my plan is complete, reviewed, revised, and it's on my calendar. That's what proactive planning looks like to me. I'm prepared to be ready to be proactive. And I'm allowing for preparation time. Just now I wrote down a proactive versus a reactive plan means that I've already prayed and thought through ahead of time what my plan is going to be. For example, maybe I prayed about and planned my day last night, so I'm prepared for my day today, or my week last Saturday or Sunday, so I'm prepared for my week, or my month on the 1st or 30th of last month or the 1st of this month. So I'm a little bit more prepared for what I'm getting ready to do, and I've reminded myself about it. It means I'm inviting him in. I'm praying over all of it. I'm honoring the God-given calling and plan that he's laid out before me. We've consulted the Lord and each other all along the way, and we've prayed for you and prayed for one another. It's a plan that's going to work, that God will honor and that he also loves. Again, join us for our Pomodoro sessions. You can find everything you need to know, but we're afraid to ask about joining us for virtual work sessions on anacqui.org/calendar on the website, or karenborg.com/calendar. We love working together. You can find information on the PDF program, Plan, Design, and Follow Through. I mean, you could create a really beautiful plan and just let it sit there for the longest time. In that program, we're not going to let each other do that. We're going to get it followed through to completion, if you can. Because 2 hearts are better than one. 4 hearts are better than 2. We've got to put our heads and our hearts together and help one another. So reach out to me for questions if you need, and you can find plan, design, and follow through or PDF2 program information on KarenBourg.com. You can reach out to me through Facebook. You can find information about our retreats on the NACWE.org website and on the KarenBourg.com website. My prayer for you, let me pray for you and then let you go and take a good solid break before we come back together. Father God, we're grateful because you know the plans you have for us. Help us to know the plans you have for us so succinctly that we cannot not do what you have called us to do. I don't know about everybody else, Lord, but you know, I struggle to focus on only one primary goal at a time, and therefore I'm not always successful to completion. So show us your way and give us the desires of your heart. Make them our desires. Help us to reach the goals you've laid out before us one at a time. Father God, thank you that you protect us in our work and ministry. We're good at planning and plotting, or at least so we think. It's getting in the car and getting started on the journey that trips us up sometimes. So we're just praying, Lord, that you'd help us to be sure the plans we have and the plotted course we want to take to reach our goal are from you, ordained by you, desired by you, planted within us by you. Build a hedge of protection around us, Father God, so we don't go astray, and protect us from harm. May every step we take on this path be pleasing to you and draw others on our shared path to you. Lord, I'm grateful. We're grateful that you teach us your ways so we can walk in them. Best practices have to line up with your will and your plan for us. So lead us step by step toward a plan that brings success and honors you. Lord, we're grateful that you have ordained all time for us perfectly. There are enough hours in our day because you ordained a 24-hour day and all that we need to do within those 24 hours. Help us to use our time wisely, to block portions of time on our work calendars in ways that enhance our ability to get the work done and in ways that please you. You tell us in 2 Timothy 2:15, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. Father God, you appreciate efficiency, so we want to be diligent and efficient in doing the work you've called us to do. Help us as we use great tools like the Pomodoro technique to be more productive and efficient. Lord, you care about every second. You count and care for the stars of the sky, the grains of sand in the sea, the hairs on our heads. You created years, quarters, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, seconds. We want to use them wisely for your glory and honor. Help us to do just that. So you care about our year, our quarter, our month, our week, our day, our hour, our minute, our second. Wow. Help us to plan and work wisely, knowing that you care, and to be grateful for your care. Lord, you give us every moment we need to do what you've called us to do. So help us to focus only on those monthly tasks that will help us to achieve our goals and serve our clients well. Help us to focus only on those quarterly tasks that will help us to achieve our goals and serve our clients well. Thank you for reminding us again and again through this process that you've granted us enough months in a year and in a lifetime to accomplish what you've called us to do. Help us to be dedicated and diligent to fulfill the calling you've placed on our lives. In Colossians 1:16-17, you say, for by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Thank you, Lord, for holding it together. We're grateful, Lord, that you're concerned about everything that happens to us. Thank you, because you're concerned about everything that happens to us. We can bring even the smallest concern to you in prayer, knowing that you care about us and watch over us. You love us and you care what happens to us. You number every hair on our head, Matthew 10, and you sent us your son. You're so great that even the very smallest detail of the universe, from the most distant galaxy to the earth, to the smallest seed, to the subatomic particle. All of these are under your control. You created everything and you hold it all together. Colossians 1:16-17. Thank you, Lord. Help us to remember this when we feel a task is mundane or frustrating. And finally, Lord, we're grateful that you are a God of action. The key word there is action. Help us to take the steps needed to plan, to prepare to do the work you've called us to do, and to implement the plan so well, we hear you say, well done, good and faithful servant. Help us to set healthy boundaries that will make us more, not less, available for family and friends and at more appropriate times. And Lord, thank you for the freedom that this brings, especially in this plan. We ask that all we do bring you glory and honor, and we ask these things in Jesus Christ's holy name. Amen. God bless you. Remember, 2 hearts are better than 1, 4 hearts are better than 2. And we are so grateful that I am so grateful that you were here through this process with me. Make sure you download the handouts. Make sure you take a healthy break. And let's get back together. We're on step 21, and we're about to crank this out. And you'll see a finished product that you can be really proud of. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.